There seems to be less distance between Tony Blair and Keir Starmer this week, as it seems that he's sort of accepted that Starmer is finally the heir to Blair, which was a phrase that we spoke about a lot ever since 2007 when Blair stepped down. Is this helpful to Starmer? I mean, certainly he's positioned himself this way, but to see it formally acknowledged, does that do him any favours with a left wing generally that are starting to become quite hostile towards him?
It's really interesting. If you look at how Starmer's approach has changed since he was elected as Labour leader, I mean, at the beginning, he was talking about a unity party, very much bringing the left along with him. I think he would have been nervous to have shared a platform with Tony Blair because the scars of the Iraq war still loom large, obviously, within the party. But he's tiptoed very astutely towards the centre ground. And I think that moment with Tony Blair was a kind of the kind of coming together of that sort of moment where he really accepted that this was very much a sort of Blairite government. And as I think I was saying last week, I've just been watching the Blair Brown years again, having watched them the first time when it first came out. And if you look at it now, you can really see that Starmer is playing very much every page of the Tony Blair playbook. And actually, Blair, if you talk to many in the sort of Labour circles, is still seen as having a bit of stardust. And, if you look at how he was received as Prime Minister when he became Prime Minister of the country in 1997, I mean, he had real star quality. I mean, people were cheering outside Downing Street. People were euphoric. He had a real kind of cult of personality, the likes of which Sir Keir Starmer doesn't have. So I think aligning himself with somebody who does have that kind of rock star status.
But that's the question I wonder, Caroline, though, is that, that was something we felt at the time. And if you look at the sort of nostalgia for the grown-ups in the room and the centrist dads that we've seen over the last couple of years with certain high-profile podcasts, is that this appetite for Blair is quite strong. I just wonder if the wider public, feel that. When he left office, it felt like a good legacy. But certainly, Blair's sort of heritage and his political career has been evaluated ever since with various inquiries. I guess what I'm saying is, do the public feel that a comparison with Blair is as strong as perhaps the political establishment and might think it was?
I don't know if the public think about it in those terms. I mean, if you look at the polling, the message is very clear that people are still not convinced by Sir Keir Starmer. They're planning not to vote for the Conservative Party because they don't like the Conservative Party, but they still haven't got to the point where they're ready to buy into Labour.
Yes.
So I think that's partly what this gamble is about trying to say, look, it was really good in 97, everybody was very excited. It was talked about as a new dawn. And look, we've actually got the figurehead of that particular movement who's now on side with us. I think it is a bit of a gamble because obviously opinion is split over Tony Blair and his legacy, particularly in regards to the Iraq war. However, I think that Tony Blair has had a renaissance in more recent years, certainly since COVID, as opposed to being seen as a kind of statesman that was flying around the world, making money for himself by being a kind of international statesman and talking to the world's sort of richest countries. He's now got his Tony Blair Institute. He's been doing a lot of work that's been very public facing. He was one of the advisors that Matt Hancock turned to during the pandemic to ask for advice because he was doing a lot of research on that front. And I think there has been a kind of change of opinion, a sort of sea change of opinion really, in terms of whether Tony Blair is sort of a goodie or a baddie, as it were. And I think by and large, the public have decided he's on the side of good.
Okay, well, certainly the song wouldn't necessarily be "Things Can Only Get Better," but, things can improve slightly. And you can read more from Caroline Wheeler in the Sunday Times tomorrow.